Good morning,
Hi,
Brian.
hi, Haley. You
We
look
were just
terrific.
saying,
I said
thank you.
you're glowing. You're glowing.
And we were just saying how much we so enjoy our time together that we look forward to it no matter what.
Yeah, no matter what. And but and we talked about the topic of aging. I just
Aging in the
wrote
body.
two experiences recently. One, I was in an Uber car from the airport, coming back from New York State, and the driver talked to Ray and me as if we were the same age. And he was 55. And I said, I'm 75. And he said, oh my goodness, you don't look 75. I thought, well, what does 75 look like? I think I look 70.
Really?
Yeah. But I just wrote a column and a Facebook post about aging, uh, and got a big response to it about aging with gratitude and grace and not comparing yourself to people who are older, younger, or the same age. And I think that's where we get caught. You know, I could say to a friend, Haley, um, gosh, I'm dealing with this brain fog, of not being able to quickly remember people's names. And uh, and well, mostly that. And he said, oh, I know 90-year-olds who are very sharp. And I thought, well, that doesn't make me sharp,
Nor does it make me feel any better.
nor does it make me feel any better. I know that there are people my age who are playing tennis and having sex regularly. Um, that's not who I am. And but they may never have had prostate cancer, and
Hmm.
they may never be on tramadol, which can impact memory and fatigue. And so when and this is true throughout our life, Haley, when we compare ourselves to people older, younger, and the same age,
Hmm.
it's a false comparison because DNA is different, family backgrounds are different, life experiences are different. So you can't compare apples to apples, right?
We can't. And I think this is such a lovely topic for today because we speak about age often and how we encounter age. And for me, I feel like if we're not allowed, if it's considered inappropriate and unnecessary to talk about people's skin color, it's the same for age. Because it's just another way to look at somebody and say that you're either included or excluded because of this.
Yes.
And, I think I have every week I encounter somebody that doesn't believe how old I am. And it does put me in a place where I'm like, well, what should I be saying or how should I even be explaining it? And for me, like I said, if it's not appropriate to include or exclude somebody for their skin color, it should be the same for age. We should just see each other for who we are. And there's a wonderful Italian quote. Um, I'm going to try not to butcher it. Um, L'amor no conosce età, which love knows no age, no years.
Yeah, that's great. I would expect that you had the same experience as did I, in that if people think you're too young, how can you be giving this kind of advice? You
You
know,
know,
uh,
I get that a lot. I also get you haven't written a book, so you're no good.
oh dear.
But, going back to the age thing, it has been a very big topic my entire life because when I was a kid, I was either too young or too old. So I was the always the youngest person in my class because my birthday is December 31st. And where I grew up, the year was January through December, not sort of August through
Yeah.
August. So I was
Uh-huh.
always the youngest person in my class. My friends, were either a year older than me, and it wasn't appropriate to hang out with younger kids because maturity.
That's
And
not
then
cool.
as I got older and sort of got to like 16, 17, I got attention from older people, and then they would be like, oh, you're so young. And I would wish to be older.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you sort of hit 30 and you're like, I'm okay. Like people are now sort of accepting me for my age. Nobody really puts you in a box when you're 30. And then you sort of hit 35 and then people start doing it again. You're either too old or too young.
Hayley, have you had people in your life who reflect about who you were at that time, how they experienced you?
No,
Uh, huh?
I actually don't, because all of those people would be my family and they would tell you right now that I've turned into an awful person.
Well, let's have a conference call with your parents so that I can
Oh
give
no,
them,
let's not.
I'll give them my 2 cents uh, about that. I think they, uh, I think they should be very, very proud of you. And I
Thank
think
you.
that if they knew how many people's lives you touched, they would be overwhelmed. You know,
You know, I think it's one of those things where the truth can only be heard by those that are willing to see it or to hear it.
yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah,
it's just loud noise and it creates a headache. So
yeah.
I think it's you know, for me and where I am now, I very much look at that situation with so much love because I know that they're better off without me and I'm better off without them.
Yeah. I have a sister in the same situation where I feel that she's better left without me, even texting,
Yeah.
uh, because family buttons are so easy to get pushed
And
and
it's
landmines
not a
everywhere.
victim mentality or I'm so useless, you're better off without me. It's honestly a place of deep love where if I tried to go back into the family right now, I would just irritate everybody and be that sort of thorn. And I wouldn't have fun with that either. So it is honestly, in all truthfulness, better that there's the separation because everybody's happier, everybody's calmer.
Can I ask you a hypothetical?
Yes.
Uh, Tomorrow you get really sick and you're in the hospital and it looks terminal. Uh, who are the people who you would want in that room with you?
Oh, my friends, my
Yeah.
friends. Yeah, like my girls.
Do you think that your parents would push their way in and say, she's our daughter?
I don't think that they would know, like
Yeah.
they would ever find out because that is where the relationship is right now. Um, and primarily for that purpose. Like, I don't want somebody coming in and telling me how I need to be sick.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Again, with the benefit of age, with the benefit of wisdom and maturity, you get to think about these things and you get to say, this is how I would want to handle it, or this is how I would want to start going into it. Obviously, as you're in it, things change a little bit. But I want to have that power of, if it's terminal, I want to be in charge of my decisions. I want to be in charge of how I navigate it. I don't want somebody else saying, you have to do this.
Have you done the paperwork in terms of power of attorney and living will?
You know, I haven't, and I probably should. I kind of have a verbal agreement with my friend because she's, out of all my friends, the most level headed. And I'm just like, listen, if you get a call, just donate everything and don't worry about anything else.
Yeah. You have to put it on paper, honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. In order for the hospital to accept it, you have to have it on paper, but you
Well, I
can.
live in Mexico too, so the rules are a little bit different.
Okay. All right. Here, you can put organ donor on your
Yeah.
driver's license. But
Yeah.
and Ray and I have done all that paperwork. I mean, it's really huge
It's a
amount.
lot.
Yeah, it is. And we're done with it. So that's great. I had an aunt who kept refusing to write a will, and that leaves a mess. Of course,
It is a mess.
your will is about 2 suitcases full of stuff. So It's not like people are going to
Let's
be
keep it simple.
fighting over your beads.
No. And I think when I was, living in New York and earning a lot of money and I had more assets to my name, I very much had all of that sorted out. But now that I'm literally a 2 suitcase person, it's so much easier. But I am very conscious of whether it's friends or even the authorities. I don't want them to be put out because I wasn't prepared.
Because you weren't what?
I wasn't prepared.
Oh, you weren't prepared. Yeah. I don't want to leave a mess for people to clean
No,
up. Yeah, it's
just
not
easy
fair
as
to them.
possible, simple as possible. Let's get back to life.
Yep, yep. So, do you have people your age, or does age not matter to you and your friends?
My friends range from 24 to 81.
Yeah,
And when I say my friends, these are people that I actively keep, like, I'm actively trying to keep in touch with and keep the relationship alive.
yeah.
And these are people that if I died, I would want them to know.
You'd want them to know.
Yeah, I would want them to know that, like, listen, I've popped off. You were important to me. And I'm still here if you need me.
And they already know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it's really important, I think, that the people who we would imagine the circle of chairs in our heart, those who we imagine sitting in the front row really need to know that they're there and why they're there.
And there are much, again, with the benefit of aging,
Yeah,
your friends get better. And it becomes so much more easier to say, I love you, and for it not to be weird or questioned. It's just, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. So with my front row, we use I love you constantly. Every
that's
conversation
great.
is I love you returned, and how much I appreciate you. And, even if it's the simplest thing of, hey, I need some help. Can you help me through this question? We still make sure that that I'm thankful that you were there to help me with it, regardless if it's just like, should I buy this coffee or that coffee?
Yeah.
And I think that, like I was saying, the benefit of age is that your friends travel with you. The quality,
Yeah,
quality of your friendships travel with you.
some drop off, which is
One drop
fine.
off, but they can't go that high.
Well, speaking of high, and I think I've given you this example before, but this therapist I went to, tell me to stop if I've told you the story. When I was really young, I was in my 20s working, and I went to see a therapist, and at the second visit, he said, I had a dream about you last night. And he said all the city lights were at the base of Mount Fuji. Have I told you this story?
No, you haven't.
And as you looked up the mountain, you could see that people had left the city and climbed the mountain and gathered together around a fire. And then at some point, individuals feel, well, I need to break camp and go higher, and then higher, and then higher, right? And that at some point, you're hopefully at the top in a circle of people around a fire with whom you don't need, there's no haughtiness to it. There's no sense of superiority with it, but there's an awareness there's a vibration that you share. And, it just occurred to me as we were talking about friends that, I feel like you and I are sitting at the same fire.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that it's okay.
Very sweet.
Yeah. It's a nice image. Ray and I are at the same fire. August Gold, who was my spiritual mentor, we were at the same fire. And I know that I can go down the mountain,
Oh yeah.
and end up at other people's fires and think, this isn't really where I want to be.
Mhm.
Dude, it's not a judgment on you people, but I know better, you know.
And it's a lot of work to actually, you know, I think a mountain is a wonderful analogy there because it's still a lot of work to go down and then it's double the work to get back up.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
compromise that kind of effort.
And it is an effort. I mean, the effort for me is staying conscious.
Mm-hmm.
It's being aware of knowing when my ego is getting involved, and catching a drama before it goes far. You know, Ray and I, as you know, say every morning, I want to work today to be the person I aspire to be. And, you know, in my aspiration, when I think about, all right, what is it that you're aspiring to be that you're not? Patience is really important,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And in many situations, I'm really good at it, but in some, I'm not, you know, and I have to, if I'm conscious of the mantra, I'm going to work today to be the person I aspire to be, it does stop me from behaviors that I would regret, like honking, right? I mean, I use that example over and over, and people think, is that all you've got in your life, honking? Are there
It's
any
just
other
the easiest, most
bigger
accessible,
issues for you?
you know, champagne problems. But I think it's like I was saying, it's just the easiest, most accessible analogy that there is. And patience is enlightenment, I think. I think that if you can reach that place of being patient across all aspects of your soul, then you're enlightened.
Yes.
Because I'm an extremely patient person. You
Are
can
you?
push me, you can push me, you can push me, and then eventually I'll just be like, and you're done, out. So it's a very hard cutoff when I'm done. But when it comes to romantic relationships, boy, do I need to practice patience.
Yeah.
And I have to, you know, really sit with myself and be like, today you're going to be patient.
Is that because emotions cloud your judgment?
Yeah,
Yeah, me too.
so easily. And I think, you know, that's the whole point of romantic relationships is that they are the greatest accelerators of growth. So they're almost here on this earth to really push you into making better choices every single day.
Often well, that is very true for Ray and me in our long-term relationship. When I respond initially with lust, right? I gave the example of Woody Woodpecker. Did I tell you that one, Mary Leach? Oh, you know, Woody Woodpecker is out there doing important things like sawing a log or whatever, and a female woodpecker walks by and sort of gives him a little, you know, look, and his eyes pop out, and his head opens up, and his brain falls out. You know? And I've had that experience in my life where I'm lost. I cannot find my footing. You know, and Hayley, it's why so many people who knew how not to contract HIV nevertheless did, because they were in a lustful situation where all good judgment
Just
was
goes
gone.
out the window. And I tell that to my clients all the time. You can be like the most enlightened person walking earth. A romantic situation will come in front of you and you'll lose it. You're back to square one where you're just sitting there going like, oh, what?
Yeah.
What am I doing?
Why is that, do you think?
I think it's because it's, you know, unconsciously we become so vulnerable. And when we're vulnerable, that's when we're so easily triggered. And if you don't have that awareness of what's happening to you at that present moment, I think it just snowballs and it snowballs, and then you're in a very codependent situation.
Yeah.
I have the awareness now, and I continue to do work every single day to try and steer myself further and further and further away from codependency and to remain independent. But even then, I still have moments where I'm just like, oh, and you do rash things where there is no patience, or you think you employ patience. And then after the fact, you're like, yeah, there was no patience there. I just went straight for the annihilation.
Well,
Um,
if there's an awareness of it, then it's easier for you to walk down a different street and not fall in the same hole.
it's easier, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it doesn't happen.
No, I completely agree with you. And you shake, you scratch your head and think, well, why did that happen? I've already had the experience.
I already knew it, and I
I
literally,
know I don't want to do that again. How did
yeah.
it happen?
But I think
Uh,
each time is, as you were saying, like, let me today be the better version of me. So we start
yeah,
again, the clock starts again. And, one of the, again, benefits of age and maturing and having sort of a more precise front row or circle of friends around your fire, you also attract people that are wanting a similar experience.
yes,
And I found that although they're not possibly the partner or the perfect partner, they've given me sort of that patience because they're on a similar journey. They've given me that patience, that space to kind of have a wobble and then be like, so you're okay now? Yeah. Did you get some sleep?
uh-huh.
And then it makes it easier for me because then I can kind of pull myself back and remind myself, we're not doing the past. We're experiencing things with love now. Things are easier now.
And Hayley, uh, if you are in a situation where you really feel strongly attracted to someone, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, uh, how do you handle that situation?
Can't do it. I
You
will
can't.
I will not allow myself. I will lock myself in the bathroom if I have to. I can't.
Well,
I
make
will
sure.
not. I will. That was a promise I made to myself last year that I will never do it again. And it was a very deep, profound promise to myself that if there is just a sexual connection, no, walk away, lock yourself, break off contact, do whatever you need to do not to continue down that path.
Yeah. And why is that? Tell me, let's say out loud why that is.
It's not worth it.
And
It's
we're not the people we want to be when we're stuck like that. We're
I'm not
neat.
the person I want to be. It's an enormous price to pay, just like we were talking about, the price of descending and then having to ascend again.
Yeah.
It just gets too high where you get to the point where you're like, this will never happen again. I can't do this to myself. Because it's fun in it. When you're in it and you're getting attention and somebody finds you sexy and you find them, and you can tell that there's a chemical sexual connection.
Yeah.
It's fun and your body responds. So all of your chemicals are like telling you, go, 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 go.
Yes.
um, but for me, it's honestly the pain afterwards that I can't do. I can't do it. And I
There's
will
a need, there's a neediness for me in the midst of it, which I don't like at all.
I don't like it. And recovering from that neediness, because those relationships are not long-term relationships. They're one night
Mm.
stands or 2-3 weeks max.
Right.
So when they end, that gaping, breezy, hollow hole of neediness is painful.
It is.
And it's self-inflicted.
Well, Hayley, if I can suggest one thing, I believe that there are chemical reactions that go on that we have very little control over. I believe that there are endorphins, that when the match happens between the
Pheromones.
endorphins, it's like magnets sucking in, and uh, it's very hard to be a wise observer in those situations, to counsel yourself, pull back, I know it feels good, but you're going to end up making a fool of yourself, and you don't want to do that again. Been there, done that.
Yep. And that's where I find that front row of friends really helpful. Because if I can sit with somebody, one of my friends, and be like, I'm interested in this guy, but there's nothing really there, it almost opens up the accountability. And they can be that sense, because I know very well I have no sense when it comes to that. And they can be that sense that is like, I think you're just doing this for a quick hit.
When I was in college, the summer between my sophomore and junior year, I entered the Christian Brothers of Ireland, which is a teaching order, originally founded to teach the kids on the street who didn't have any money. Now it's ridiculously expensive to go to one of the schools. But so I entered that order because I wanted to be a teaching brother. But I found myself inexplicably drawn to one of the guys. Now, I hadn't had any sexual experiences, none, zero. The therapist that I had to see before I went in said, you've had the sexual experiences of a 12-year-old, right? And I didn't know whether I should be proud or horrified.
Really, I mean, like, is that good or bad?
Is that good or bad? But what he didn't say, and I learned later, is that I had the sexual maturity of a 12-year-old, right? Because I had no, and it was, even if I had had training, I think there are some of us that sex is there, but it's not the dominant drive in our life. So I kept finding myself drawn to this one guy. I'd go kneel next to him when everyone was in chapel, right? And that attraction scared me. It was one of the reasons I left the monastery. Is one, it was obedience, so I was never going to fit into that one. We weren't supposed to have pets, and I got a gerbil that got loose.
You were just straight off the bat breaking
I
rules.
was only there 2 months, and I disrupted the whole place. But there was that scary feeling of attraction and not knowing how to handle it. It takes time and age and practice.
It really
I
is.
almost,
And determination.
Yeah, I don't know if you agree with this as a woman, and because our sexes are so different in terms of how we frame experiences. But I've often thought it would be good to have somebody mentor a younger person. I'm not saying 10, but 14, 15, about sexuality and about what to expect and about the things that people are able to do. In this book of mine, this mentor, my memoir, I talk about how I learned about sex from jokes, that the other kids told. And oh, that's what happens, because my parents didn't talk about it. They didn't sit with me and explain it to me. So I've often wondered whether or not, and my nephews and nieces know that all they have to do is bring the subject up, and I dive in. Uncle Brian will say whatever, he says it out loud, and I like that. I like being known as an honest, knowledgeable person about sex. But I wish I had met me when I was younger.
I think where we came from, and hopefully where we're going, is having sort of those circles of wisdom available to us. Because I think, part of the divine feminine is having these wiser, older women that mentor the younger woman or the younger girls about what life is. And I think we came from that, we separated from it, and hopefully we're starting to open up more into it. And I think the same should happen for men too. Men should have these circles of mentorship on what it is to be a man and responsibilities, etc., etc. I hope we're going that way. My education of sex literally was Cosmopolitan magazine.
But,
Yeah,
yeah.
like that's all we learned about. And then obviously as you get older, like you start talking about it with your friends and other things come into the purview. I think it's from my understanding of sex is that it is so shrouded in secrecy and mystery because it's so powerful. And sex has the ability to either make or break somebody, unlike anything else in this world.
Well, and I don't disagree with that, but you know that in France, children are given a glass that has a little wine in it and water, right? So they're being prepared for the day that they will drink wine without the water. So there's no mystery to it,
Mm-hmm.
much less likely that these kids are going to become alcoholics because there's no mystery to it.
Right. It's not hidden in secrecy. And
I think the same would be true for sex.
I think it would be true. And I think, that's where we came from. We came from a place where sex was openly discussed and openly mentored. And then it became this secret thing because I do think people realized how powerful it was.
Hayley, when you said a minute ago that the circle of women, wise women, you see that coming back, what's your evidence of that? How do you tell me what's going on there? Because I'm interested.
I think it starts a lot with my generation, and there's obviously a few women in the older generation that are open to teaching and sort of being with us. But what I see in my generation is that we're far more open and willing to discuss than the generation before. And if
Mhm.
I look at the generation that's coming up behind me, those women that are now coming into their 20s, they're far more able to talk about sex and talk about life in ways that we were afraid of when we were 20.
Mhm.
And I think that only happens because, talking as a woman and about women, I think it only happens is because other women allow that space and other women are available to listen without judgment or listen without jumping to some kind of stereotype. Because
Yes.
when I was 20 or not even 20, when I was 16 and you were having sex, you were a slut. If you got pregnant, oh my God, like your life was over, go live in the
Yeah.
hills to talk to
Yeah.
you. Whereas now, like, it's far, far easier for a 16-year-old to talk about sex with another woman than I think when I was growing up. And obviously, that's not for everybody, but generally, I think it's a lot easier and there's a lot more open ears without judgment nowadays.
And puberty though is starting so much earlier than 16. I mean,
Yeah.
girls are menstruating at 11, 12,
Mine, yeah.
and they need to be talked to in advance of that. But one thing that when you were talking about that men need to come together and do the same, there is that group called the Mankind Project
Mhm.
that I went to a warrior weekend, and a lot of good things happened with it. But Hayley, every day I get an email advertising a workshop that costs money. And what happens so often is something that's good has to become an institution, and
Mhm.
institutions cost money. So everything that they offer, you have to pay for. That's not going to work. You know,
It's not going to work. And it's very interesting that you raise that because I like to keep, even though woman, I like to know what's going on in the world of men's and sort of these, and mostly like straight men, because I think that's where a lot of support is lacking. So I like to see who's kind of doing straight men groups. And there are a few that, 4 years ago, they were completely accessible. A Zoom call was $20. Now the Zoom call is $400.
Why?
And it's
Why?
just because they've got more popular.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just, yes, you then can reach a certain branch of the population that possibly needs it more than others. I don't know. But I think we have to take a really serious look at ourselves and ask the question continually, am I perpetuating the pattern? Even though I'm trying to help, am I perpetuating the pattern? And for me, when I look at that and I ask the question, are those people perpetuating the pattern? My answer is yes. And it hurts, like it hurts my heart, because these are people that are charging $400 and I'm not. And I'm, like, people that I work with now feel like they need to go and see those people because they're charging more, so they must be better.
I see.
And
Yeah.
people
I
like,
don't-
oh, you need to raise your rates, you need to raise your rates. And I will not raise my rates because, again, if I ask the question, am I perpetuating the problem? For me, that's a yes. I break the pattern every single time I say, I'm available, you can pay me what you can.
I talked with a woman yesterday, a friend, who is getting royally screwed by two business partners and treated awfully. And she said, I just don't want to change my kindness. I don't want to stop being the open-hearted, person who takes care of everybody. And I said, don't let it happen. That doesn't mean you don't defend yourself.
Right. You still have to have standards.
You do, and you can hire people to do the kind of things that you don't want to come out of your own heart. But don't let people make you into something because of their cruelty. Don't let them change
Or their
you.
expectations. Because the expectations don't necessarily need to be cruel either. And by that I mean, I have some wonderful friends that expect that I want to have the same lifestyle as they do. And for me, I've had that. And so now, I'm a 2 suitcase kind of gal. But it's also, to face that kind of pressure of this is who we want you to be, or this is what you should be doing. Raise your rates so that you can hang out with us, or do this so that you can be a part of this group. It's, don't change your fundamental being because you have that pressure of expectations, whether they be well-intended or cruel.
It's nice that you've had the experience of making money already, so that it's not a mystery to you. You know the experience, you know what it can do, you know what it can buy, you know what it does to your ego, and that's a wonderful base, so that when your friends say, raise your rates and you'll get this, you're able to say, I've had it, and I don't need
want it.
What's that?
Want it better. I still want it. I just want it better, in a better intentional space.
Yes.
I do very, part of what I want to achieve in this lifetime is to be able to show that you can be abundant in money with good intentions, to be able to use that money in a way that honors who you are as a person. And my goal since making the decision to leave banking was to be able to be earning that same amount of money, but to have a better value of what that money means. If that makes sense.
Have you succeeded at that?
I'm sorry?
Have you succeeded?
Oh, I'm getting better. Every year we jump up a little bit more, we jump up a little bit more. And I think that's part of the beauty of life, is that we may not be patient in terms of the timing, but everything happens in the right time. And I know that if I made the same amount of money now that I did in banking, you're damn right I'd be taking that expensive vacation, which would be, then I would have to ask myself, are you perpetuating the pattern?
Yeah.
So, I still have a fair amount of growing in terms of being able to strengthen my relationship with money and wealth, to be able to be in that position of seeing it in a completely different light. There's still a few more lessons there for me.
Yeah. I think I've told you that, we foolishly loaned all of our money to people who can't pay us back. We're fine. It's not the life we imagined having at this age, but we don't want for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, it was a gift. If we had that money, I would be giving it away. So would Ray. You go to a
Absolutely.
fundraiser and they'll say, all right, who will give us $10,000? I love to be able to raise my hand.
I'm right there with you. Like,
I can't do it anymore. We don't have them. We can't give them $10,000. I'd love to.
but you can give them $5.
$5, yeah. Well, they never get that low.
But
We have 4 groups that we, are able to give money to. We choose them based upon the work that they do. And there are hundreds of groups out there that are worthy.
there are.
But these are the 4 that we pick, and that's what we can afford, and that's fine, and so.
I love that about this lifestyle, is that no matter how much you have or how much you don't have, there's still some to give. And when I was working in banking and had more money, I had about 3 or 4 organizations every year that I would give. I felt really good being able to give a decent amount of money that would actually make a difference. And obviously not able to give that kind of money now, but now, like, being able to give somebody like what I would usually spend on a cup of coffee feels amazing now. And
Yeah.
I can maybe sit and be like, oh, I have no money and I really have to watch my pennies this month and I shouldn't go out and eat. Somehow being able to give somebody my last 100 pesos feels amazing.
Because you only have 1 apple in the refrigerator.
Oh, I'm on to bananas now.
Well, that's how we started our conversation.
Yep.
Is that you had 1 apple in the refrigerator, but you trusted.
And more always comes. The greatest lesson out of that was when the one's finished, more will come.
Yeah.
So it's being able to, like, yesterday, this little girl was in the equivalent of a 7-Eleven and bought herself a little thing of candy. And like, she had saved up her 10 pesos to get it. And I was just like, give it to me. And I bought it for her and I gave it to her. And she was like, do you want my money? And I'm like, no, sweetie, no. Like, save that for your next one. And she literally just looked at me and she was like, are you sure? And she's maybe 5 or 6. And I was just like, no, I'm really sure. Like, go for it now. And it's those moments that even if I had $1 million, it doesn't compare to that exchange. Like,
it doesn't. And the impression is so powerful. I read a story yesterday online about a mother and her toddler going into a 7-Eleven or a grocery store, something small, and there was a teenager sitting on the cement in front of the store, and they came out and gave him a sandwich and a banana, and the 5-year-old said, I'm the one that wanted you to have a banana, and the guy was just taken back, and the little boy waved through the car window as long as he could until they were out of sight. Good things like that happen, and we help make them happen. When people see us return a grocery cart all the way back to inside the store, it makes an impression. No.
And I love that impression because you can tell by the look on the faces, some people are like, oh, you goody two shoes.
Yeah.
And then there are other people that are like, oh, let me get the card. And they go and do their part. And I love to be present for that because either way I get a giggle.
Yeah. It's and the gift, the gift is the giving, as we've talked about. You know, I get the good feeling returning the card. I don't care if I'm being seen. It doesn't matter. And I suspect that some people watching me think I'm a dope, for
Goody two
doing.
shoes.
Yeah, why are you being such a dope? Uh,
Somebody's
and it,
come and get that. It's their job.
I want to be a dope. You know,
You
I
know,
take pride in being a dope.
I take pride in being who I am. And sometimes that's a nerd, sometimes it's hilarious, sometimes I walk into a pole. I love who it is. And sometimes that person is an outright snob because that's what I need to be me. And I
Yeah.
think it's a celebration of and the confidence to be able to say that I'm all of these things. I just try and be the better of all of them.
Well, that takes us back to the beginning, in terms of how we age. And I think we should be taught at an early age to laugh with ourselves,
Absolutely.
not at ourselves, with joy and gratitude. Yes, I walked into the pole, but the pole moved. It wasn't.
This is honestly what happened yesterday. I came back from the gym, and the gym was a bit of a hectic workout. It was a leg day. And I was just like walking on the sidewalk. And then I was like, boom. And I was like, that's me. Had a moment of laughter. And immediately afterwards, I felt the light change and got an amazing photo of the sun coming through the trees. And I was like, I love that I can walk into a pole and not have awareness of a pole.
Yeah.
I can have awareness of light changing.
Yes. Laugh with the walking into the pole.
Yeah.
Because we can be hard on ourselves. We can be, you idiot, why look, why don't you pay it? You do this all the time. Or we can say, that was funny.
Just did it again.
I don't care to do it right away, but it's funny that my body is in a space where it's sort of walking,
We thought we could blend with the pole, but we can't yet.
Yeah, we can't, but so
Few
to
more
laugh,
meditations.
laugh with life, not,
I think
you
so.
know, and I know circumstances impact it. Being poor can impact your ability to laugh. Being lonely can impact your ability to laugh. But you
Being
can
rich
still,
can impact your ability.
absolutely. But it's you're right there. I mean, a really rich person can have a terrible time laughing because they are so serious about their money. But I think laughter and joy and gratitude are such important components of life.
They don't
And they're
cost
free.
money.
Doesn't cost a thing.
I know we're out of time, so one last story from me. But when I was living in New York and married, and we were talking about having kids, and sort of my husband and I at the time had the same concern about like, if we have kids, we want to be able to provide the absolute best for them. So we're going to hold off having kids until we feel financially stable. And I saw this lovely gypsy woman who was reading tarot cards, and she was just like, go look around, go into the poorest neighborhood and look around and tell me how many kids you see smiling. And she was like, it's not about the money, it's about the love. And that conversation, like the snapshot of that moment, the room, what she was wearing, the light, the temperature, and those words are stuck in my head forever. I probably won't be having kids, but just that awareness of look around you and look at the people who are smiling. They're not smiling because they're in a stagecoach or wrapped in gold. They're just normal people smiling.
Yep, because they have a can kick down the street and have fun,
yeah,
kick the can.
Yeah, and she was like, these families have 6 children. If it was all about money, all 6 of those children would be miserable. But every single one of those kids is finding something to laugh about.
Yeah, yeah. And we're all one. We're all one
One of them.
soul.
Yeah,
Yeah. So they're laughing, and their laughter helps elevate us,
it totally
just as
does.
our returning the cart elevates them, right?
Having the awareness just to see the beauty in the mundane.
Yep.
What shouldn't be there is still beautiful.
Well, I love talking with you, my friend.
Now I could talk all day. I hope that you feel better and
Oh, I'm fine. I'm just a little tired today.
get some rest.
Yeah, yep. Well, you know what, Hayley, when I'm tired, I accept it. I don't fight it.
It's one of the beautiful things about Mexico. The thing
Yeah,
we hear most often in Mexico is go and rest.
yeah. Well, we do. Ray and I take a nap in the afternoon, but if I'm kind of wobbly, I accept it and laugh with it. You know,
Amazing.
what's the alternative?
Exactly. Well, I hope you have a very sweet, restful day, softness, and we'll speak soon.
I love you, honey.
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye-bye.